Walk into any standard hospitality operation on a busy day, and you will see a staff in constant motion. They are reacting. A room isn't ready. A dining area is overbooked. A guest is confused by the checkout process. The operation is caught in a cycle of managing unforeseen friction. In these environments, successfully de-escalating an angry guest is celebrated as excellent customer service. But praising a skilled apology masks a deeper operational failure. Traditional service recovery is a lagging indicator. By the time a frontline employee is deploying conflict resolution techniques, the operational friction has already damaged the guest experience and strained the staff. Achieving genuine operational excellence requires shifting focus upstream. The goal is to replace reactive damage control with the systematic anticipation of guest needs. This shift relies on a tripartite prevention architecture to eliminate complaints. Standard reactive models wait for an error to fully breach the system before the operation responds. The proactive architecture reverses this, projecting a preemptive barrier that neutralizes the error before the guest is inconvenienced. Building this barrier requires three strict operational pillars: continuous environmental scanning, rapid frontline intervention, and data-driven system improvements. By engineering an environment around these three layers, management replaces the cycle of constant reaction with a system designed to intercept friction before it results in a formal complaint. The first layer of this architecture is sensory operations. This requires moving the focus away from individual transactions to macro-environmental scanning. The physical space itself must be continuously monitored. Staff must evaluate crowd density and queue lengths. A sudden influx of guests in a dining area or a growing line at the front desk are the primary physical triggers for impending dissatisfaction. This scanning extends to facility functionality. Tracking the usage rate of a restroom allows staff to deploy cleaning resources based on actual foot traffic rather than a static hourly schedule. Monitoring the physical space provides the raw data. To act on it, sensory operations must be paired with strict guest anticipation protocols. If the incoming guest list shows families arriving with small children, the operation pre-deploys extra amenities and configures specific seating options well before the guests approach a counter. If the property is hosting a high-stakes corporate event, anticipation means early room preparation and routing those attendees through an expedited check-in process to prevent bottlenecking. These strategies work because they rely on understanding standard demographic expectations. Staff apply known solutions to predictable profiles before the guest arrives on site. The operation must also scan for the unpredictable. Staff must actively observe the guest's immediate behavior during interactions, noticing a guest glancing around repeatedly, and offer navigational assistance without waiting to be asked. When macro-environmental scanning merges with strict anticipation protocols, staff action precedes the guest's realization of a need. The friction is neutralized at its source. The intelligence gathered through sensory operations holds no value if the frontline staff lack the authority to act on it immediately. Frontline workers are positioned to observe the earliest behavioral warning signs: a repeated question, a slight hesitation, or a subtle expression of frustration. To translate those observations into solutions, the organization must implement an empowered intervention pathway. This structure stands in direct opposition to standard corporate hierarchy. In a traditional setup, correcting a minor billing error or offering an amenity requires a worker to navigate a high-friction bureaucratic maze. While they wait for management approval, the guest's frustration compounds. The preemptive pathway bypasses the maze. Staff are granted the authority to make on-the-spot decisions, such as waiving a fee or upgrading a room, the moment they detect early warning signs of dissatisfaction. Workers do not naturally execute this level of autonomy. It requires rigorous training programs built on scenario-based exercises and active role-playing to calibrate judgment. Beyond training, management must structurally guarantee policy autonomy. Staff need the legal and procedural backing to take initiative without fear of internal reprimand. This structural autonomy must be delivered with precise soft skills. Staff deploy active listening and transparent communication, addressing the guest's concern directly to ensure the rapid intervention is perceived as attentive care. The empowerment-intervention nexus rapidly collapses the time between issue identification and resolution. It terminates the issue before a formal complaint can materialize. While frontline empowerment patches localized friction, the final layer scales prevention across the entire organization. We move from the physical lobby to the digital backend. Streamlined internal systems, from the reservation engine to the property management platform, proactively eliminate the most common sources of routine complaints. This relies on deep technological integration. By tracking guest behavior and service patterns across multiple touchpoints, the system builds an ongoing operational profile for the property. Logging past complaints and specific requests into a centralized database allows the system to generate predictive accommodation alerts before a returning guest ever arrives. Automated booking checks instantly flag duplicate reservations or scheduling conflicts. This reduces human error and enforces a stable environment for the staff to operate within. This macro data provides executive management with a clear map of recurring bottlenecks. If a specific check-in procedure repeatedly triggers delays, management can see the systemic flaw that frontline staff cannot permanently fix on their own. Management must then use this data to regularly review and rewrite organizational policies, permanently patching the flawed processes that generate friction. These optimized systems must then push automated, clear communication outward. Sending digital checkout instructions or maintenance schedule alerts manages guest expectations and prevents confusion. Because these systems dictate the daily workflow, management must actively seek staff input during their design. The technology must act as an accelerant for the frontline, never a hurdle. A correctly optimized system strips out the variables that lead to error, while simultaneously providing the exact data needed to tailor the guest experience. By integrating macro data with continuous system optimization, the back-end machinery becomes frictionless. It renders the delivery of service effortless to the final consumer. True complaint prevention requires all three layers operating simultaneously. It is an endless, repeating loop. Conduct sensory operations, deploy empowered interventions, and optimize the macro systems. The entire framework remains dormant without a hidden requirement, a pervasive organizational culture of vigilance and accountability. A policy manual cannot force a worker to care. Management must actively foster this specific culture by recognizing and rewarding the staff who successfully execute preemptive operations. The internal stakes are clear. Successfully deploying this architecture removes the burden of constant conflict from the front line, reducing workplace stress and turnover. The external stakes define the business. Preventing friction protects the brand's reputation and fosters the deep, long-term guest loyalty that isolated apologies can never achieve. Implementing a preemptive operations strategy creates a rigorous, engineered environment that guarantees a standard of absolute service excellence.